105.9 and online at thezone1059.com.
Good morning. Welcome into the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Driven by your next Exmark zero-turn mower at Hartley Equipment. Bad Boy zero-turn mower, Hartley Equipment, or Skag zero-turn mower at Hartley Equipment in Gluckstadt on Church Road. 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, live in the Bank Plus studio. We welcome in Josh McCuistion, Soonerscoop.com. Oklahoma Sooner insider Joe Castiglione announces 27 years as athletic director with a ton of success. I don't know if this last football hire is, but with an enormous amount of success. Joe Castiglione stepping down. Zach Selmon, we know that he is tied to Oklahoma with his dad and his uncles, and he was at Oklahoma when Mississippi State hired him to be the athletic director. Josh McCuistion, will you describe what the Selmon family and name, as far as royalty, what that level is like in Norman, Oklahoma?
You know, you and I were talking about this a little bit yesterday, Bo, and I think the easiest way to put it in perspective is Oklahoma has a bronze statue of all their Heisman Trophy, everyone ever, and it's just to the east side of the Oklahoma Stadium. The only statue that does not contain a Heisman Trophy winner is the Selmon brothers. And it's a trio. It's a statue of all three of them. It is, they really are. They are synonymous with, Oklahoma football and, an era of Oklahoma football in the 70s where Oklahoma was so dominant and so many great teams. And I think it's not just about they were great players, which all three of the brothers were. I think at bare minimum, like second-team All-Americans at one point or another in their career. Leroy went on to be the number one overall pick of the Buccaneers. He was a great player. Dewey was a great player. Lucius was the oldest, and he was an outstanding player. So there were all these things, but they also have gone on to do things afterward. They went into coaching. They went into, the athletic directing, into athletic department. So, they've touched sports, and, not just in Oklahoma, but, kind of around the sport in a lot of different ways.
All right, you're listening to the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. The show is driven by Hartley Equipment in Gluckstadt on Church Road. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app and the Zone1059.com. Josh McCuistion, Soonerscoop.com. So they're in like the top 2 or 3 families as far as Oklahoma royalty the last 50 years, Josh?
I would say they're on the short list. Because again, it's just so unique. It's not just one guy or a couple, a father and a son. It's 3 brothers, and they're from this little small town out in eastern Oklahoma named Eufaula, and just kind of out of nowhere, you had these 3 brothers that were just legendary players, and it is. And like I said, it's not just about, they're great players. You hear this all the time, Bo, and you hear it, I hear it. They're great guys. They are legitimately, they were all just unanimously great people. Leroy has since passed on. Dewey and Lucius, are still with us, but there are, I've never heard anyone come in contact with any of the Selmon family. And that, of course, includes Zach, that had any sort of negative review. They are just tremendously kind people.
Do you think that Zach Selmon is a top 1, 2 in the top 3 candidates for this to replace Joe Castiglione?
I think he could be. I think that could happen. I don't think that's as we stand right this moment. And I say that because the impression I get, and what they announced during Joe Castiglione's retirement ceremony, was that this was going to be led by Randall Stevenson, who was brought into Oklahoma's athletic department back in December, kind of officially. He had some connections. He was AT&T CEO for a long time. So this is a guy that, understands the business world very well. And from what we kind of gathered, it's all preliminary. It's very early. I mean, this is not like Oklahoma's going to make a hire in 3 weeks or anything like that. That's not my expectation. But I do think they want to, let's just use the old business cliche. They want to go a little out of the box on this. That's my impression. I don't think they are just going to go find the best athletic director who has success and has some track record or knows the university in Zach's case or whatever that may be. I don't think that's the first idea. Now, it could come to that point. I could see that in Zach, of course. Like we just talked about, his family is royalty at Oklahoma. He is beloved. I know Joe Castiglione would absolutely, love the Zach Selmon hire. That was kind of his right-hand guy his last few years at Oklahoma. So there's a lot that makes sense there. But as it stands right now, I don't think that's the point OU is starting at.
Wow. Okay. Josh McCuistion, Oklahoma Insider, Soonerscoop.com on the Out of Bounds show. So you feel like Randall Stevenson is jockeying or positioning himself to possibly get this job, former CEO at AT&T?
No. Not at all. Like, I don't think that's what he wants to do. I think he's kind of taken on a role of almost like a general manager is the wrong thing to say because we all know that's Jim Nagy's role, but just kind of an overseer of a lot of the operations, a lot of the, fundraising, money, things like that I think he is kind of almost – he took the job, and I think the role has grown since he's gotten there. And, again, that's not something I've been told. That's just kind of my impression of watching things and how, again, they're announcing him as kind of the ringleader of this athletic director search. Like, that wasn't anything that we had, an understanding of. So, again, I don't think this is him looking for that position at all. I think he is going to be the one that is searching and kind of dictating where this search may go.
Was Joe Castiglione okay with Randall Stevenson coming in to the athletic department?
That was our understanding. I mean, that was something, and again, Randall Stevenson is a guy that's been around Oklahoma. This is not like a guy that just brought in, like he's a fan, he's invested, like he's a guy that legitimately cares about the school. So it's not like he and Joe just met at the time of his hiring. This is a guy, Joe had known for a while. So I do think there was a comfort level. There obviously Joe's been around at OU for almost 30 years now as the athletic director. He came in 95, and it is 96. I'm sorry, it was 97. I'm just throwing out numbers now at this point. He's been around for a long time, and there had been rumors at various points that I think Joe's getting near the end. He's about ready to step down, that kind of thing. I wondered a lot if the Lincoln Riley change, if the move to the SEC kind of invigorated him, and beyond that also he didn't want to leave OU in such a time of tumult where so much was happening, there was so much shifting, and obviously not everything is, level ground for OU right now, but I do think he feels like the people are in place to make the right decisions, and of course his input's going to be taken into all of this. I mean, he's one of the most respected guys in the industry. They'll hear what he has to say for sure.
Do you have time for one more quick segment, Josh?
Sure, of course.
Okay, I got some more I want to get to. Josh McCuistion, Oklahoma Sooner Insider, Soonerscoop.com. We're talking Joe Castiglione stepping down after 27 years as the athletic director. Zach Selmon is obviously tied to the University of Oklahoma through his dad and his uncles, and there's a lot of moving parts here. So I got a couple more questions for our friend Josh McCuistion. Plus, Ole Miss plays at Oklahoma this year, which may be the first time in the history of the Ole Miss program, which would be the first time in the history of Oklahoma, because last year they played in Oxford, but I don't think Ole Miss has ever played in Norman, Oklahoma. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. One more quick hit with Oklahoma Insider, Josh McCuistion. All right, we are the Out of Bounds Show, brought to you by Grit Fitness and Training Facility in Flowood. Jay Powell is the new director of baseball operations, World Series champ for the Marlins, All-American at Mississippi State. unbelievable renovation of a beautiful, beautiful facility. Grit Fitness and Training Facility in Flowood behind Ergon. Jay Powell, the new director of baseball operations at Grit Fitness and Training Facility. Indoor, outdoor, turf, batting cages, pitching mounds, all at Grit Fitness and Training Facility in Flowood. We welcome Josh McCuistion back into the show on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. Oklahoma Sooner Insider, Soonerscoop.com. We're talking Joe Castiglione stepping down after 27 years as the AD, and where, what this could mean for Mississippi State and Zach Selmon. So did Zach's dad work for Oklahoma for a while, Josh?
Yes, and this is where it gets a little before my time, but yes, I know that I want to say other than Leroy, which is funny because Leroy is always the one that is kind of most synonymous with Oklahoma because of all his on-field success, even in the NFL. I want to say both I know Lucius coached at Oklahoma, Zach's uncle, and I want to say Dewey worked within the athletic department. And I'm a little fuzzy on exactly what that was, but I do believe he had a role at Oklahoma at one point or another.
Okay. And Dewey, Zach's dad, and Lucius are still alive. Do you see them around a good bit? Like game days?
You still see them a fair bit. They're on the sidelines. Obviously, they are. That's something that Brent Venables has done a really good job of bringing a lot of the old guys, the older guard back. That was something that you didn't see a lot with Lincoln Riley, and I don't know if that was by design or what that was, but it was a clear difference from Stoops to Riley and now back into Venables, where it's a little more like the Bob era. So you definitely see those guys around. I want to say the last time I remember seeing Dewey, he was giving a speech, and I can't remember what it was at. It might have been it was one of the unveilings. I almost want to say it was one of the Heisman ceremonies or something. There was something there, and I remember him speaking. I can't remember what that was for.
Okay. So when we talk about royalty names, Switzer, Stoops, and you would include Selmon in Oklahoma, right?
Oh, there's no question. I mean, that is and I think even younger OU fans still they may not fully understand what that means, or understand why those guys are so important, but they know that name has meaning. It carries weight at Oklahoma. So there's no question. What's amazing about them to me is that it's you don't ever get that from them. A lot of guys walk around like I was an All-American and I was great, and those guys, there's a lot of those guys in a place like Oklahoma. But with the Selmons, you get the feeling that I've got two little girls, Bo, and I could walk them up to them and introduce them, and they'd make my daughters feel like they were the only people they ever wanted to talk to. That's just kind of what they're about, what they're like. They're just very engaging and don't kind of have that I don't know, aura is not really the right word, but just they don't have that image of I'm unapproachable. They just don't feel that way.
That's so awesome. What a credit to golly, because they're all legends, and y'all have had so much success the last 5 or 6 decades. And God, they played under Switzer when they were just roaring and rolling. Good grief, y'all are mowing people down. All right, so here's what I'm picking up from you, Josh, as an Oklahoma insider. You would not be surprised if Selmon's in the top 2 or 3, but then you wouldn't be surprised if Randall Stevenson and some others maybe have some other ideas of bringing someone in from the private sector and maybe seeing if they could give this a go. Is that kind of where you're going, Josh?
That's kind of where I'm at. What I think you'll see, because when you talk about top 1, top 2, top 3, whatever, you've got to think those guys get interviews. My guess is because of Zach's relationship with Oklahoma, because of how many people really respect him, like him, care about him, I don't think they would even get that far down the road unless they were pretty sure they wanted him. Like, just to not put him in that situation where he has to go back and, oh, yeah, I interviewed for that, but, it wasn't right for me. Or, like, just not force him to have that conversation.
Okay.
Or to even make that choice.
Here's where I go. Castiglione's going to be the AD emeritus, which means he's going to be looking over someone's shoulder. I read where he's got some special projects. Some people are okay with that. Some people are not. To me, a dude from the private sector would not be okay with that. A Kirby Hocutt, who is far more established and a better, longer resume, been around longer than Zach Selmon. I don't see Kirby Hocutt being okay with Castiglione, still being a big piece of the puzzle. But for Zach Selmon, not even 40 years old, only 2 years as an AD, I could see Zach saying, hey, I'm okay with you, Joe, wanting to still hang around in a pretty big way for 2 or 3 more years because I want this job so bad and it's my dream job. What is your reaction to that?
No, I think that's a very good point, Bo. Like, because again, that is something where you're right. A lot of people, you see it again to go to the business world where a CEO steps away, but he's going to remain chairman of the board, or there's always these things, and you're like, yeah, but another powerful guy's not going to, like, he's going to want his hands on the wheel and nobody looking over his shoulder. So I think that's a really good point. And what I wonder about is how much of that is negotiable as far as like Joe. What is, what does he want to have? How much of that is completely titular? Like how does that work? So and again, Joe, loves Norman. I don't expect him to move. I mean, his son actually does some work for us at Sooner Scoop, is a guy that, played football at Oklahoma. There's a lot. It's not just, oh, this guy was here a long time. Like they are invested in the community. And so I think it would be hard for him to just clearly walk away. But I think if they came to him and said, Joe, we've got the right guy. We really like this guy. And Joe's probably going to be in on some of these interviews. And, or at the very least be getting firsthand information from them. And if he is like, yeah, this is the guy we should hire, something tells me Joe cares enough to be like, I can let go of that, or I can do this, whatever we need to do to make this work, I think Joe would be willing to do. But at the same time, if it is someone like Zach, and Zach goes in and says, hey, man, I'd love to have your input. I'd love to just kind of pick your brain and kind of ease myself into some of these conversations I'm going to have. I think that could be a really natural fit. And you would think more than anybody, Zach would be open to that.
I got 20 to 30 seconds. Will Joe Castiglione have a bigger say or Randall Stevenson? Or could it be
I think it's Randall Stevenson.
Wow.
I do. Yeah. Like, I mean, that because they didn't have to say, oh, this is the guy. They did say it. They said Randall Stevens will lead this. He will head this search. So I don't know how you don't take them at their word on that.
Okay. Man, that was great, Josh. Thanks so much. We'll do this again soon. I appreciate you.
Oh, anytime, Bo. Always enjoy it, man.
Josh McCuistion, Oklahoma Sooner Insider, Soonerscoop.com, on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Lunch today brought to you by, how about the bacon cheeseburger with onion rings at Martin's in Livingston? Maybe start off with the cup of gumbo. I like that. Yeah. Bacon, cheeseburger, mustard on the side, come back on the side, onion rings, start with a cup of gumbo, Martin's in Livingston.